Just a quick moment of silence for Marcellus Williams, December 30th, 1968 to September 24th, 2024. May he rest in power. May he rest in peace.
The black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here, because we're the only ones who've carried the process through the process. That everyone else has sort of like skipped stages. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter. Because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for. And we still had to go through those channels and those processes.
I don't really care what you have to say. Facts over fiction is the motto replay. Muhammad Ali came up from the clay. Grassroots built up this USA. Now knowing your history, you'll get played. Equip yourself cause you came to slay any opponent that's up in our way. Look at Malcolm X and his delivery.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Appreciate it. I'm just going to check my levels real quick just to make sure that we are alive and in the building. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Okay. Looks like we are good. So, everyone, thank you for joining. We're going to be talking about the tribal housing program, specifically bills AB 1878. And as I was doing my research, looks like there's actually another bill that did pass Congress, U.S. Let's get to the state, right? And here in California, SB 1187 in regards to the tribal community here in California. So we're actually going to be going over that bill as well, in addition to the American Freedmen housing programs that got held up in legislation, and those were SB 1007 and SB 1013. So I am rolling solo today, but I would like to give a shout out, as always, to Kim and Darlene and everybody else that's holding it down. And big shout out to our brothers and sisters over for the Coalition for Just and Equitable California. I don't know when we're going to be starting the reading the final report again. Who knows? But when we do, please check the YouTube out and subscribe to Coalition for Just and Equitable California's YouTube page. So when we are ready to go live again for the live California Reparations Task Force final report readings, you will be notified and hit that bell, family. All right. So once again, let's please visit us at our Amazon account. So should be in that link in the description. As always, this is free to join and support there, as well as etmmediagroupstore.com. You can check us out there for all the merch, as well as reparationsnowdoc.com. That's reparationsnowdoc.com, as well as Tubi. All right, family, we got a lot to get into tonight. We got a lot to get into. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing popping. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And please forgive me. I'm going to be moving back and forth from the screen here, reading things. So if you can't see something, please let me know in the chat. But I'm going to try and do my best here to man the operation here as best as I possibly can. So the first, let's see how many pages. I think this is about 6-7 pages. I might be skipping some things. Just trying to cover most of the main topics, but if need be, I might just read each bill the whole way through, so we can just get some analysis. And then I'm going to be reading some fiscal analysis as well as some history on these bills. So I guess let's get started, shall we? Thanks once again for joining. All right, here we go, family. And I'll be reading the comments at the end as usual in tradition. So if you don't see me responding to your comments, I am focused on these bills. Here we go. AB 1878, Housing Programs, Tribal Housing Program, 2023-2024, Senate Bill number 1878. An act to add Part 14 commencing with Section 15990 to Division 3 of the title of the Government Code, to amend Sections 50406 and 50513 of, and to add Section 50469 to the Health and Safety Code, and to add Section 17131.18 to the Revenue and Taxation Code relating to housing. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a housing bill for the tribal community out here in California. All right, so you know what? Actually, before we get into it, let me play a video. Actually, I was meant to do that before. Let me play a video real quick, and then we'll get back to reading. So let me cue this video up, and this is in regards to AB, let's see, 1878. Here we go.
To continue to work on California's First Peoples issues with water and housing moving forward. AB 1878 starts to put the voice of California's First People in the forefront on committees and commissions that were left off of those when certain things were being discussed prior. Because of the author's work, they are now have a seat at the table to talk about the rigorous regulations that affects Indian country that starts to bring down those barriers so that funding can move forward.
Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 69, noes 0.
All right, so that clip was from August 31st. I believe it was the Assembly bill floor, and it did pass. So there you go, but we will be going further into that later on. Anyway, let's continue. Let me go through this. Shall we read this whole thing? It's pretty long. Anyway, let me read just the first paragraph, and if you or anyone wants to read the rest of it, you can go just onto the CalLeggy info and read the rest. So let me just read maybe the first two paragraphs, and then I'll go down to the rest of the bill. All right, here we go. AB 1878, Garcia Housing Programs, Tribal Housing Program. Existing law sets forth the general responsibilities and roles of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, the Department of Housing Community Development Department, and the California Housing Finance Agency in carrying out state housing policies and programs. Existing law, the G. David Singleton California Indian Assistance Program, requires the department to provide comprehensive technical assistance to tribal housing authorities, housing sponsors, and governmental agencies on reservations, rancherias, and on public domain to facilitate the planning and orderly development of suitable, decent, safe, and sanitary housing for American Indians residing in these areas. Upon request of the governing body of a reservation of rancheria, or rancheria, if you want to pronounce it that way, existing law authorizes the department to act on behalf of the Tribal Housing Authority and perform the functions thereof. This bill would remove the authority for the department to act on behalf of the Tribal Housing Authority. The bill would also require the department to provide comprehensive technical assistance to tribes, designated tribal housing entities, and tribal housing departments on reservations, rancherias, and on public domain, and tribes that want to participate in tribal housing grant programs, to note, on fee simple land. The bill would additionally require the department to provide comprehensive technical assistance to facilitate the planning and orderly development of suitable, decent, safe, and sanitary housing for American Indians residing within a tribe's designated service area as defined by the tribe. The bill would require the department to provide outreach, education, and comprehensive technical assistance to tribes, tribal housing authorities, tribally designated housing entities, housing departments of a tribe, housing sponsors, and governmental agencies on reservations, rancherias, and on public domain in the development of tribal housing grant programs. And before, during, and after the grant application process, the bill would require data collected pursuant to these provisions to be kept confidential and not subject to public disclosure. Very interesting. All right, so you know what? Actually, let's continue with the next paragraph. Existing law authorizes the department to modify or waive various requirements of any state financing being provided to a housing development by the department in specified situations if tribal law, tribal governance, tribal charter, or difference in tribal entity or agency legal structure would cause a violation or not satisfy the requirements for the financing. Existing law authorizes the department to waive, among other things, target population percentage requirements, not to exceed a change of more than 5% of any amount expressly set forth in statute, and affordability levels, and unit mix requirements, not to exceed a change of more than 5% of any amount expressly set forth in statute. All right, so looks like there's some more information here. It goes on. Let's read this here. It says, this bill would create in the department the Tribal Housing Grant Program, Trust Fund Advisory Committee. Okay, so it looks like there's going to be an advisory committee, according to this bill. Upon appropriation by the legislature, the bill will require the committee to be composed of, among others, members who are representatives of federally recognized tribal governments and have knowledge, experience, and expertise in the area of tribal housing, tribal land, tribal government, tribal policy, and tribal law as specified. The bill would require the department to appoint members to the committee and to make into account geographic diversity and proven quality experience and expertise in tribal housing when appointing members to be on the committee. The bill would, subject to funding availability, authorize specified members to receive per diem and expense reimbursements as specified, and will provide that the per diem and expense reimbursements shall not be deemed to be gross income as specified. All right, let's see here. Let's keep going. The personal income tax law, in modified conformity with federal law, generally defines, quote, gross income, end quote, as income from whatever source derived, except as specifically excluded, and provides various exclusions from gross income for purposes of computing tax liability. All right, let's keep going. This bill would make legislative findings to that effect. Vote majority. Appropriations, no. Fiscal committee, yes. Local program, no. All right, so this goes into, looks like the formation of the Tribal Housing Committee. Part 14, it says Tribal Housing Grant Program Fund Advisory Committee. Section 15990A There is hereby created the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Tribal Housing Grant Program Fund Advisory Committee, upon appropriation by the legislature. B1. The membership of the committee shall be composed of members who are representatives of federally recognized tribal governments and have knowledge, experience, and expertise. Okay, basically it's saying what it said up above. And barriers for tribes to successfully access state-funded grant programs. These members shall consist of at least the following. 3 members from Central California, 3 members from Northern California, 3 members from Southern California. For non-voting members as follows: the Secretary of Business, Consumer Services, and Housing, or their designee, the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, or a designee, the Executive Officer of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, or a designee, the Executive Director of the California Housing Finance Agency, or a designee. The committee shall be co-chaired by both of the following: the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, or a designee. Also be a tribal representative voted upon by the committee members. All right, what's this? Looks like it talks about a per diem. Subject to funding availability, a voting member of the committee who represents a small tribe receive a per diem of $100 for each day during which the member is engaged in the performance of official duties, and shall be reimbursed for travel and other expenses necessarily incurred in the performance of official duties. All right, so let's keep going here. We're just going to keep going down. Okay, it talks about some bylaws. Section 15990.3. This part shall only take effect upon sufficient funds appropriated by the legislature to implement this part through funding made available to the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund, established pursuant to Section 50651.1 of the Health and Safety Code. So it looks like there's going to be a Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund set up. All right, let's see here. So it goes, looks like some other information regarding, it says, for the purposes of this division, the department has all of the following powers. Okay, so it basically goes on to explain what the department has the powers to do. If anyone wants to take a further look into that, please look forward into that. We won't go into that right now. I'm just going through some of this, trying to pick out the really important parts I think that are. Let's see. Target population percentage requirements. Change of target population based on income shall not be of more than one category of income between extremely low, very low, lower, and moderate income households, as those terms are defined in Chapter 2. All right, let's go. Let's see. The department shall not require, this is Section 3, 50469A. The department shall not require a tribe that is an eligible recipient of state funding to waive tribal sovereign immunity in order to access state or federal funds, as long as not requiring the waiver is not in conflict with applicable law. The subdivision does not apply to sections 50237, etc., or any affordable housing programs administered by the department under those sections. All right, let's keep going down here. Okay, so pretty much at the end of this, section 517131.8 says gross income does not include any payment received by an individual pursuant to section 15990 of the government code. Section 6, the legislature finds and declares that section 4, which amends section 50513 of the Health and Safety Code, imposes a limitation on the public's right of access to the meetings of public bodies or the writings of public officials and agencies within the meaning of Section 3 of Article 1 of the California Constitution, Pursuant to that constitutional provision, the legislature makes the following findings to demonstrate the interest protected by the limitation and the need for protecting that interest in order to protect the privacy of California residents while also collecting useful data on housing and services to tribes and tribal members. It is necessary to preserve the confidentiality of this information. All right, so I just read you a couple of lines from Assembly Bill number 1878. If you want to look further into it, please go to the California Legislative Information website. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to go into the budget analysis. Make sure everybody can see my screen. Okay, I think my screen is good. All right, so this is the Senate Committee on Appropriations Budget Analysis. So June 17th, 2024. The bill summary, AB 1878 would establish the Tribal Housing Advisory Committee within the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. Upon appropriation of funds by the legislature and make specified changes to the Department of Housing and Community Development's HCD's tribal liaison and technical assistance requirements, the bill would also require HCD to create tribal set-asides for specified funding programs, defer loan payments for the full term of a loan, and require forgiveness of loans to tribal sponsors as specified. Fiscal impact, BCSH agency estimates first year costs of approximately $547,000 and ongoing costs of approximately $523,000 annually for 3.0 PY. All right, so do I have this up here? Okay, let me share this tab because I had to look up the term PY and had no idea what that meant, but we are going to find out. Okay, this is a glossary from the legislative website here in California. PY stands for personal year, the actual or estimated portion of a position expended for the performance of work. For example, a full-time position that was filled by an employee for half of a year would result in an expenditure of 0.5 personal year. This may also be referred to as a personal year equivalent. So PY means personal year. All right, let's go back. All right, so to continue, it says, let's see, $523,000 annually for 3.0 personal years of staff to create and staff the new advisory committee and administer the provisions of the bill, including the development of a standard grant agreement for state tribal housing grant programs, identification of tribal targets and set-asides in housing programs, and providing administrative support for the advisory committee. BCSH agency would also incur additional expenses, likely in the tens of thousands of dollars annually ongoing, to provide for travel, per diem compensation, and other costs associated with advisory committee meetings, general fund. BCSH agency indicates that one-time costs to design, develop, and integrate the tribal management information system are unknown, but likely in the high millions of dollars, and also estimates unknown costs, likely in the millions of dollars annually, for ongoing maintenance of the system. In addition, BCSH agency estimates it would incur one-time contracting costs in the low millions of dollars prior to launching the new TMIS to conduct outreach focused on promoting access to the program and technical assistance through the general fund. HCD estimates ongoing costs of approximately $1.04 million annually for 5.0 PY of staff to add a new tribal liaison, modify existing program guidelines to account for different matters that may be waived or modified for tribal applicants. to provide additional coordination with tribal stakeholders, to incorporate additional tracking for tribal waivers, and to provide outreach and enhanced technical assistance to tribal entities. General fund. Unknown significant cost pressures and revenue losses related to provisions that require deferral of all principal and interest payments and forgiveness of loans for any state funding assistance program provided to tribal sponsors, general fund, and various special funds. All right, so it just gives us a little background, which I believe most of it we probably read in the bill AB 1878. I'm just gonna go through, see if there's anything else in here that we need to note. Staff comments. Let's see. It's noted relation. Yep, I think that's about it. So let's go over the history real quick of this bill, and then we will move on to one of the descendant bills. Let's see here. Thanks once again, family, for joining. Appreciate it. And your patience. Once again, I am solo here, so I'm going to try to do my best to move around here and transfer the screen and information, etc. All right, so let's go to the history here of AB 1878 real quick. So it looks like this bill was read the first time in January of 2024, and then it went through the various processes through the legislative cycle, through the Senate and through the Assembly, and then once again Senate amendments were concurred and enrolled on September 12th to the governor at 4 p.m. and then approved by the governor September 19th. So sometime last week, and chapter. All right, so that is the housing program for the tribal housing program for the tribal community here in California. And once again, that's AB 1878. So let me go ahead. I am going to go ahead and put up, let's see, another bill. It's going to be, let's see what's next. SB 1007. So if you can give me a little bit of time to set up, I will be back in about a minute or two. And we'll be back with SB 1007. Thank you. All right, family, we are back to go over SB 1007. All right, before we do, just want to make sure that the screen is there. Okay. And let's see here. We're going to play a little video. If you haven't yet seen it, you can check out the video that we did earlier today. I think we released it regarding SB 1007. And yeah. So actually, let's play this video. Let's go.
SB 1007. This bill is a recommendation from the California Reparations Task Force, a task force that I spent the last 2 years of my life on. And these are suggestions from the final report upon appropriations provide financial aid and assistance to descendants of enslaved persons for the purpose of purchasing, owning, or maintaining a home. This can be done through subsidizing mortgage payments, homeowners assistance, insurance, I should say, and any other means to assist descendants with owning and maintaining a home. SB 1007 is about starting a long process of paying back a debt that's not only owed, that is promised, and 160 years overdue to African Americans. It is the first step in closing the wealth and equity gap created by centuries of slavery and racial discriminatory policies. Even after the abolishment of slavery, federal, state, and local laws enabled racially discriminatory practices that segregated Black Americans from the rest of society. Practices like redlining, discriminatory zoning, racially restrictive housing covenants, and even outright prohibitions.
All right, family, that was Senator Bradford, who actually is going to be terming out this year, but he's the one who authored this bill that we're about to read, and I believe that clip was from my housing committee session earlier this year. So that was in the Senate. So let's go ahead and read this bill. Once again, this is SB 1007. All right, let me see if I can blow this up just a tad bit more. All right, cool. Here we go. SB 1007, Housing Homeowner Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program. Introduced by Senator Bradford. Let's see, SB 1007. And by the way, I'm pretty sure we've read this on our platform before, but we're going to read it again because I think it's important that we go back and read these bills because, you know, we believe that they should be back up for legislation in this upcoming 2025 season. So let's go. SB 1007, as amended, Bradford Housing Homeowners Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program. Existing law establishes the California Housing Finance Agency in the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for the purpose of meeting the housing needs of persons and families of low or moderate income. This bill would establish the Homeowners Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program for purposes of making, upon appropriation by the legislature, financial aid and assistance for the purpose of purchasing, owning, or maintaining a home available to descendants, defined to include African American descendants of chattel enslaved persons. This bill would require the agency to develop and administer the program and provide financial aid and assistance to qualified applicants it selects. The bill would set forth eligibility requirements for applicants and procedures for administering the program. Vote majority, appropriations no, fiscal committee yes, local program no. Section 1, Chapter 6.9 is added to Part 2 of Division 31 of the Health and Safety Code to read, Homeowners Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons. For purposes of this chapter, the following definitions apply. Agency means the California Housing Finance Agency. Descendant means an African American descendant of a chattel enslaved person or a descendant of a free Black person living in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century. Principal residence has the same meaning as in Subdivision K of Section 3 of Article 13 of the California Constitution. Program means the Homeowners Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program as established by this chapter. Qualified applicant means an applicant who satisfies all the requirements under Subdivision A of Section 50676.5.2. The Homeowners Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program is hereby established for the purpose of making financial aid or assistance available to descendants for the purpose of purchasing, owning, or maintaining a home. Upon appropriation by the legislature, funds shall be distributed under the program in accordance with this chapter. agency shall develop and administer the program and consent with the requirements of this chapter, provide financial aid or assistance to qualified applicants it selects. 50676.5.2a. A person shall be considered a qualified applicant eligible to receive a grant pursuant to this chapter if the person currently lives in the state and is a descendant. The agency shall solicit and receive each round of applications for this program by January 1st of each year. Monies are available for the chapter's purpose. Financial aid or assistance provided pursuant to this program shall be used to assist descendants with purchasing, owning, or maintaining real property to be used as a principal residence, including to subsidize mortgage payments for homeowners, insurance, and any other means that will assist descendants with owning and maintaining a home. And by the way, this bill was not part of the CLBC's priority package. Just want to note that. That is the California Legislative Black Caucus, SB 1007, introduced by Senator Radford. Once again, was not one of CLBC's reparations priorities, I should say. All right. Let's go into, let's see, the analysis. This was according to the appropriations. All right. Let's see here. This was the hearing date April 15th. All right. Okay, we already said what this bill is, so that's the bill summary. Okay, fiscal impact. Unknown, significant one-time and ongoing costs for Cal HFA to develop and administer the HADEP program. One-time fixed costs are likely to be in the low millions to develop and adopt guidelines and regulations, determine grant award criteria, set up application processes, and perform necessary IT systems upgrades to establish an online publicly accessible portal for the program. Ongoing administrative costs and personnel needs would be dependent upon the amount of funding appropriated by the legislature for the HADEP program. Staff estimates these costs would be at least in the high hundreds of thousands annually, and for illustrative purposes, Cal HFA indicates that costs to administer a new program are typical within a range of 5% of the amount of funds appropriated. General fund. Ongoing general fund cost pressures at least in the tens of millions annually to provide funding for the HADEP program. All right, so it goes on about the background, which those that don't know, many of these bills came from the California Reparations Task Force study. So yeah, there you go. I think that's the fiscal. Let's see if it talks about anything else regarding the fiscal. Going through. Nope. Okay, so we're going to end it there. And we're going to move on to, let's see, does this give the history? Okay, here we go. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see it. All right, so here's a little history of the bill. So it was introduced in February of this year. Looks like it went through the Housing Committee in the Senate, and then it actually went to the appropriations, but unfortunately, it did not pass appropriations. Looks like that was March, April, and May 16th. So this bill did not go through the legislative process. So yeah, so once again, hopefully this bill will be able to be picked up again in 2025. So I'm gonna go ahead, pause for a minute. If you once again give me about a minute or two, and then I'm gonna come back with SB 1187, which is another tribal bill that did get passed. So please allow me a couple of minutes and I will be right back. Thanks once again. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Mass Media Group. Appreciate it. I'll be right back. All right, we are back in the building. All right, so we're going to be going over SB Senate Bill 1187. A couple seconds here, but before we do, let me play a video. I believe this was in. Do I have it loaded here? I think I do. Okay. SB 1187. Here we go.
Yes, anyone have any comments? Or go ahead, Senator Padilla. We have a motion. Who said down here move it? Senator Sayarto. Okay, Sayarto's moved. Senator Padilla, go ahead.
Sure. Great. Madam Chair, thanks. And members, just to extend my gratitude to the Pro Tem for your obvious persistence in this space and getting us to a place where there could be a programmatic framework that would ensure a greater amount of state support for housing and sovereign places that are often overlooked. So I really appreciate the persistence, and looking at the history here, it's pretty obvious that's what it's taken. So I'm happy to be supportive. Thank you so much, Senator.
Great. Any other comments? All right. Senator McGuire, would you like to close?
Again, Madam Chair, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Senator Padilla, and would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Great. So we do have that motion, and we'll do a roll call. The motion is send to Appropriations to pass to Appropriations Committee.
Senator Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Ochoa Bogue.
Aye.
Ochoa Bogue, aye. Blake Spear.
Aye.
Blake Spear, aye. Caballero. Cortezi.
Aye.
Cortezi, aye. Menjivar.
Aye.
Menjivar, aye. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Ciarto. Ciarto, aye. Amberg. Wahab.
All right, we'll keep the bill on call.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So
Thank you so much.
got some absent members. Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen here. We're going to go on to SB 1187. All right. Okay, SB 1187, Housing Programs, Tribal Housing Reconstitution and Resiliency Act. All right. And let's see, who is this authored by? To get the author here. It's interesting. Legislative Council. That's interesting. There has to be an author. So I think there's McGuire authored this bill. I think it said. All right. Anyway. SB 1187 Housing Programs, Tribal Housing Reconstitution and Resiliency Act. All right. Oh, yeah, here we go, McGuire. Okay. SB 1187 McGuire Housing Programs, Tribal Housing Reconstitution and Resiliency Act. All right. Talks about, let's see. You know what? Let's go ahead and read it. Existing law establishes the Department of Housing and Community Development in the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency and makes the department responsible for administering various housing programs throughout the state, including, among others, the Multifamily Housing Program, the Cal Home Program, and the California Emergency Solutions Grants Program. The bill would enact the Tribal Housing Reconstitution and Resiliency Act and would create the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund to be administered by the department. The bill would require any monies appropriated and made available by the legislature through the Annual Budget Act for purposes of the fund, and 10% of any monies that will be appropriated and made available by the legislature to the department through the Annual Budget Act for specified housing programs to be paid and deposited in the fund. The bill would require the department to monitor the balance of the fund, and when the department determines that sufficient monies are available in the fund, the bill would require the monies in the fund to be allocated in accordance with a specified formula as provided. The bill would authorize the funds to be allocated for specific purposes, including, among others, housing and housing-related program services for affordable housing, housing and community development project costs, and management services for affordable housing. The bill would require the funds to be allocated only for the benefit of eligible beneficiaries, including, among others, Indian and essential families and individuals residing in an Indian area as specified. The bill would require recipients of the funds to expend all funds allocated to programs and services within 5 years from the date of execution of a funding agreement with the department, and to expend all funds allocated to projects within 7 years from the date of execution of a funding agreement with the department, unless granted an extension by the department as specified. But majority appropriations, no. Fiscal committee, yes. Local program, no. All right, so it looks like it goes to the background here. All right, we'll go ahead and skip this. If anybody wants to read this further, you can. Once again, go to the California Legislative website, and then you can read this further. But I'm just going to, for all intents and purposes, go further down here. See if there's anything to look at. Okay, maybe J. Let's look at J. It says about 25 of the state's federally recognized tribes either have no land base, a land base but no resident population, or no housing units reported. Tribes with a land base often have limited developable sites because of topography, soil and drainage problems, and fire hazards. Sites that are developable have low capacity, failing or non-existent water, sewer, and electrical systems. These tribes must compete in the private market for decent sites to house their members. All right. Actually, let's go back to H. It says there are currently 109 federally recognized tribes in California. They vary greatly in terms of land, resources, and capacity. All right, let's go down. All right. So give some more definitions here. Essential families, what they constitute as federally recognized tribes, what housing means, what Indian means. That's interesting. What Indian area means. Indian tribe, NAHASDA means the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act of 1996. All right, give a definition of median income for the area. A nonprofit housing sponsor. A definition of Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee. All right, let's actually read that. Means a state advisory body established pursuant to section 15990 of the government code to represent tribal interests in state housing programs, including providing guidance to the department on proposed guidelines and making recommendations. Committee composition shall consist of at least 51% tribal housing staff. Okay, this is very interesting here. Okay, so let's see what requirements they are suggesting. Committee composition shall consist of at least 51% tribal housing staff, tribal leaders, and a tribal attorney, and shall include diverse representation from tribes in terms of geographic location, size of tribe, and revenue from sources other than NAHASDA. Okay, so it looks like there is some type of precedent that is being set here. I don't know if it's something that we might be able to use for any of our upcoming housing descendant agencies and bills, but this is something to take note. That's not saying that we have to use this. It could probably be more than 51%, but that's just something to take note. 50651.1, there is hereby created in the state treasury the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund to be administered by the department. All interest or other increments resulting from the investment of monies in the fund shall be deposited in the fund, notwithstanding section 16305.7 of the government code. Monies in the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund shall be subject to transfer to any other fund pursuant to any provision of Part 2 of Division 4 of the Title 2 of the government code, except to the surplus money investment fund. All right. So that's except to the surplus money investment fund. Both of the following shall be paid and deposited in the fund. Any monies appropriated and made available by the legislature through the Annual Budget Act for purposes of the fund. 10% of any monies that will be appropriated and made available by the legislature to the department through the Annual Budget Act for the Multifamily Housing Program. All right. Infill Infrastructure Grant Program of 2019, Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Act of 2014, Chapter 6 of the Division 4 of the Military and Veterans Code, and Joe Cerna Jr. Farm Worker Housing Grant Program. The use of monies deposited into the fund pursuant to this subdivision shall only be subject to this chapter, regardless of any other law governing the use of the balance of the funds appropriated to programs governed by this division. Separate from the fund and subject to appropriation by the legislature, monies made available to the department through voter-approved bonds for the Multifamily Housing Program, Infrastructure Grant Program 2019, Veterans Housing and Homelessness Prevention Program, and Joe Cerna Jr. Farm Worker Housing Grant Program may be made available as tribal set-asides in alignment with the eligible uses of those funds. The department shall monitor the balance of the fund. When the department determines that sufficient monies are available in the fund to allocate, the department shall allocate the monies as follows. 95% of deposits into the fund pursuant to Subdivision B shall be made available on an entitlement basis to the duly constituted governing body of a California-based federally recognized Indian reservation or rancheria, in accordance with a formula allocation to be determined by the department. The formula shall be based on input and guidance from Indian tribes in the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee, which may include but not limited to a specific formula or factors to be used in a formula for allocation. Funds shall be provided in the form of multi-purpose block grants. Multi-purpose block grants for eligible uses in support of housing and housing-related planning, program, project pre-development, operating subsidies, staffing, and administrative activities as specified in this chapter. 5% of deposits into the fund shall be available for technical assistance to eligible tribes and tribally designated housing entities to build their capacity to independently plan, design, apply for, implement, and operate affordable housing programs and projects. Recipients that receive an allocation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D shall use no more than 20% of the allocation for costs related to the administration of funds received on an entitlement basis unless the recipient receives approval by the department. To receive monies pursuant to this section, tribal governments shall do both of the following. Annually submit a plan to the department detailing the way allocated funds will be used by the tribe in a manner consistent with this section. Submit an annual report to the department that provides ongoing tracking of the uses and expenditures of any allocated funds. The department shall ensure geographic equity in the distribution and expenditure of funds allocated pursuant to this section. In close consultation with California tribes and a Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee, the department shall adopt guidelines to implement this section, including determining allocation methodologies. Thereafter, the department may adopt, amend, or repeal guidelines for the administration and implementation of the chapter in consultation with California tribes and a Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee. Section 50651.2. The monies in the fund allocated in accordance with Section 50651.1 to eligible applicants may be expended for all of the following purposes. All right, so there's quite a few here. I'm just going to go through a couple of these, and if anyone wants to see the rest of these, you can go ahead and once again do your research. All right, so eligible applicants may be expended for all the following purposes: housing and housing related program services, home buyer assistance, owner occupied home rehabilitation loans and grants, homeowner, home buyer, and renter counseling, including credit counseling, rental assistance, energy audits, improvements to remediate lead-based paint, mold, and other hazards, improvements to increase physical accessibility for elderly and disabled persons, wraparound services, community outreach to tribal members experiencing homelessness, model activities that provide creative approaches to solving affordable housing activities, other affordable housing program services, housing and community development projects, costs including but not limited to all the following. All right, the acquisition, new construction, reconstruction, or moderate or substantial rehabilitation of affordable multifamily and single-family housing projects for rent or ownership, including real property acquisition, demolition, and relocation. All right, site preparation, site amenities, construction of rehabilitation of community serving amenities. I'm just going to go through here. The construction or rehabilitation of commercial uses that create job or economic development opportunities for tribal members that is collocated with an affordable housing project. Other pre-development costs, including but not limited to administration and planning of affordable housing projects, market studies, soils engineering, and architectural plans, grant writers contracted to work on project funding applications, and finance professionals to assist with financial packaging of state and non-state housing assistance programs. All right. Talks about some grant writers here. Grant writers contracted to work on program applications to prospective funders, monitoring, data collection, evaluation, and preparation of annual performance reports to the department. All right, a recipient may request the department's approval for use of more than 20% of entitlement funds allocated under Section 50651.1 to help cover administrative costs. All right, so let's see here. We're almost done. The monies in the fund allocated to eligible applicants in accordance with Section 50651.1 shall only be expended for the benefit of one or more of the following eligible beneficiaries: Indian and essential families and individuals residing in an Indian area, households residing in an Indian area with annual incomes up to 80% of the median income for the area for rental housing programs and projects, and up to 120% of median income for the area for the home ownership programs and projects. In high-cost areas, tribes may provide financial assistance to households with incomes up to 150% of median income for the area for home ownership programs and projects, provided the total dollar amount of assistance does not exceed more than 10% of total funds allocated. Section 50651.4a. 1. Recipients shall have 5 years from the date of execution of a funding agreement with the department to expend all funds allocated to programs and services. Recipients shall have 7 years from the date of execution of a funding agreement with the department to expend all funds allocated to projects. An extension to expend funds may be approved by the department when the recipient demonstrates significant progress towards completing the approved activities and a responsible plan to complete them within the extension period. All right, last paragraph. If it is determined on the basis of a review of the recipient's annual reports that the eligible activities have not been completed or are unlikely to be completed in the required timeframes, the award may be reallocated to another eligible activity, reduced, or withdrawn, except that funds already expended on eligible activities shall not be recaptured. A reallocation of an award will not be made until the recipient has submitted an explanation as to why the original eligible activity will not proceed and has requested reallocation to another eligible activity. A reduction or withdrawal of an award will not be made until the recipient has been provided notice, and only then if the recipient has not made an appropriate and timely response, which may include submittal of revised implementation schedules and plans to receive the eligible activities. All right. Let's see. Let's go into the budget analysis here for SB 1187. Once again, if you could please like, share, And definitely subscribe if you have yet to subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. All right, so this is the budget analysis. Looks like this was amended August 22nd. Rules Committee. Okay, it talks about creating. What is this? Okay. Assembly amendments require money made available through the budget for specific programs to be deposited in the Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund. Okay, so let's take note. All right, so we were trying to establish, right, the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency, and also the fund, the apparatus to set up the fund, right, to receive payments eventually for reparations. But in this case, it looks like California has set up a Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund. All right, authorize other funds to be deposited in the fund. Required 95% instead of 80% of the funds to be made available on entitlement basis to eligible tribes as specified, and makes other technical changes. All right, so let's see here. Any money appropriated through the Budget Act for purposes of the fund, 10% of any monies through the Budget Act for the multi-family housing, all right, program, the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program. Okay, I believe we talked about these a little bit earlier. Let's see here. The bill creates a Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund administered by HCD. The fund, upon appropriation, allocates as follows: 95% on an entitlement basis for a federally recognized Indian reservation or rancheria in the form of multi-purpose block grants for housing and housing-related planning, programming, project pre-development, operating subsidies, staffing, and administrative activities as specified. Requires the formula to be based on input and guidance from tribes and Tribal Housing Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee, which we did speak about the Grant Program Trust Fund Advisory Committee. I believe it was in another bill. Let's see here. Okay, we read that. Okay, authorizes the money. All right, talks about the background. Okay, funding for Indian reservations and rancherias. HCD previously operated a program to provide technical assistance to Indian reservations and rancherias in planning for affordable housing, but it was not funded beyond 2006. Okay. Talks about the problems and the issue. Okay, fiscal effect. According to the Assembly Appropriations Committee, ongoing general fund cost pressures, at least in the tens of millions of dollars and potentially exceeding $100 million annually, to provide funding for the grant program. HCD estimates ongoing general fund costs in the high millions of dollars annually for dedicated staff to implement and administer the new grant program. These costs would be incurred only to the extent funding is appropriated for the program, and the ultimate ongoing staffing needs would be partially dependent upon the amount of funding provided for the program. The Budget Act of 2024 includes no funding for a Tribal Housing Grant Program. All right. Okay, here's some of the organizations that were in support of this bill, and none were received in opposition. All right. Okay, so let's go with the history, and then we'll have one more bill, and then we will be wrapping it up. So let's see here. I'm going to share this screen here. Okay, so this bill was first introduced February 14th, 2024 of this year. It went through the various committees, obviously through, what is this, SB, so Senate first, and then obviously the Assembly, and then looks like it was Assembly amendments concurred, so there was 40 ayes and 0 noes. This must have been an assembly. Yeah, so this was a Senate bill. So in order to engrossing and enrolling, and then September 10th, it looks like, it was enrolled and presented to the governor at 4 p.m. And then the governor approved this Tribal Housing Reconstitution and Resiliency Act on September 19th and chaptered on September 19th. So once again, Governor Gavin Newsom approved this bill. All right. So if you can give me about another 1 or 2 minutes, I'm going to go then into SB 1013, which is a descendant related bill. So thanks everyone for your time and patience and for staying educated. And I will be right back. All right, everyone. We are back here. So I had to queue up a video here. We actually covered SB number 1013. This is a Bradford bill, taxation property tax assistance for descendants of the enslaved. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here, and then I'll get into the language of the bill again. So let's go ahead and watch this. All right. Here we go.
Well, but we have Senator Bradford. If you're ready, we can go, or you can defer and wait for an author to arrive. Terrific. Senator Bradford's up next. This is file item number 6, SB 1013. Senator Bradford, thank you for your work on this bill, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm here to present SB 1013, which would create a property tax assistance program for descendants of enslaved persons program. The program would provide financial assistance in the form of a rebate on property tax paid, helping descendants maintain home ownership and keep a roof over their heads. Many of us know after the Civil War, federal, state, and local government officials working with private individuals actively segregated Americans and land into African American and white neighborhoods. This housing segregation occurred for over 200 years and through a variety of different government strategies and policies. Certain segregation methods were declared unconstitutional, local governments ignored them or thought of new ways to reach the same goals. Although the decisions of millions of private homeowners, real estate agents, and landlords settled Americans into segregated residential patterns, it was actions by all levels of government which expanded and solidified these settlements into segregated neighborhoods that we know today. This bill is the recommendation of the California Reparations Task Force, which I spent 2 years part of, and it will counteract the property tax barriers that have been reinforced the existing patterns of housing segregation in California and across the nation. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Bradford. Do you have any primary witnesses?
That's what I'm aware of.
Oh, we invite. No.
Not here.
Okay, we would invite anyone who'd like to come up and speak in favor of the bill to come join us here at the front microphone. Welcome to the committee.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Kim Mims. I'm here with the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJAC, ARC, Sacramento, and Amend the Mass Media Group, and I am in strong support of 1013. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Chair and members. Senator Bradford, Chris Lawson, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. On behalf of the coalition, strong support also on behalf of the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project out of LA, California Black Lineage Society out of the Inland Empire, and the American Redress Coalition of California out of the Bay Area, all in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning again, Karen Lang on behalf of the California Association of County Treasurers and Tax Collectors in support, and they want to be helpful in developing the program when it comes to life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Rubalcaba with Newsom on behalf of Contra Costa County, also in support.
Thank you.
Morning, Henry Ortiz with Legal Services, Prisoners with Children, all of us and none in strong support of this great bill, Mr. Bradford. Hopefully we could get one for the Yuto Azteca descendants or native people here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sydney Fong with Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders for Civic Empowerment, AAPI Force, and Alliance for Reparations, Reconciliation, and Truth in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here in the hearing room want to indicate their position of support? All right, seeing none, we'll move to those in opposition. Is there anyone here in the hearing room that wants to speak in opposition? All right, we'll bring the matter back to the committee for comments or questions. Senator Dawley.
So, Senator, we've worked together on my office, actually, if you recall, when I was in the Assembly, we did the Freedmen's Bureau and actually had the Mormon Church, which did a lot of work in trying to trace back lineage to slavery, and actually went through the whole Freedmen's data. And I know the Assembly Member Joan Sawyer and many others came and tried to trace back. So I want to ask a question on that. So trying to get the gist of how this was going to, how it's going to work, because one of the my concerns is that we've had a lot of immigration come to America prior to slavery, and how do we determine who's actually a descendant of
and that's why we have SB 1403, which will establish the Freedmen's Bureau. That's another bill that I'm working on that will have genealogists that will help determine those individuals eligible. Again, those who are direct descendants of chattel slavery, which we know it's going to be a challenge in tracing that, or anyone who arrived to the United States prior to the 1900s.
Okay. That bill is separate of this.
Yes,
right.
But it's going to help determine.
So you can trace back. So you actually are. So the system can't be gamed from somebody that wasn't actually.
That's why we were very
our
specific.
Family wasn't impacted by
the language of the Reparations Task Force that our former colleagues, Dr. Shirley Weber, authored AB 3121, clearly stated descendants of chattel slavery. Not it's not going to, capture everyone who says, "Hey, I'm here." It's those who can trace their lineage to chattel slavery, or those who arrived in the United States prior to the 1900s.
Thank you.
Very good. Senator Bradford, thank you for your continuous work in this area. I know it's not been easy. You spent a lot of time with the task force and their thoughtful recommendations, which we're considering today. I appreciated the conversation that we had yesterday in regard to the bill before us, in ensuring that we could provide the benefit to all those who meet the test, not just those who are property owners. That if you're a renter and you're a descendant, the concern that I expressed was that we should be treating them the same. And I think you have indicated that is your intention.
I accepted your amendments. I failed to state that in my opening statement.
Right. So I just wanted to have on the record. And would you like me to describe it, or do you want to describe the amendment?
You can describe it.
Okay. So in regard to ensuring that we would treat everyone fairly under the bill, that it would allow renters who meet the definition of a claimant in the bill to also receive assistance based on the amount of property taxes paid by the property owner where they're renting, the amount of time they've rented in a calendar year, number of people paying rent at a given address. So these are elements that will be put in the bill, as I understand you're accepting those.
I'm accepting your amendment.
To ensure that the benefits of this to account for that trail of discrimination, which is so unfortunate but true, that they get the benefits of what you're proposing to.
Exactly.
Okay, terrific. And I think that for me sums up why I think this is a bill that's worthy of support today. And I'm happy to support it if we have a motion now or as we continue this discussion today. Is there anything else you want to add in closing, Senator?
No, I appreciate the support, not only from this committee, but the witness who came to testify. This is not an easy issue, but it's one that needs to be addressed. And again, it's a lot of folks who are still in denial of California's role and slavery and the impacts that it still has in this state and this country today. And the Reparations Task Force, which I challenge every member of this legislative body in both houses to read, those 1,100 pages clearly spells out all what we have discovered, all that needs to be known, and why this is so important. So I respectfully ask for a aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Bradford. I'm going to pass the gavel over to our Vice Chair Dolly. I'd be happy to move the bill as amended.
Motion is to pass as amended to the Appropriations Committee. Senators Glazer.
Aye.
Glazer, aye. Dolly. Ashby. Bradford. Bradford, aye. Dodd. Padilla. Skinner. 2-0.
Leave it open for absent members. I'll leave it open for absent. No, we have an author in the room. Thank you, Senator Dolly, for your work as leading the committee. We're gonna.
All right, so I know that clip was a little longer, but I think it was important to get the proper context in the history of this bill. Once again, I probably didn't say it, so let me say it now. SB 1013, Taxation Property Tax Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons, was not, and I'm going to repeat, was not part of the CLBC's priority package bills. So we don't know what's going to happen with this bill next year, but we are looking forward to this being in the legislative California cycle next year in 2025. But let's go ahead and read this bill, shall we? All right, here we go. SB 1013, Taxation Property Tax Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons, introduced by Senator Bradford. All right, let's see how many pages this is. Okay, I don't think I'm going to read that first paragraph. Yeah, let's see. I'll skip to the second. So this bill would establish the Property Tax Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons program For purposes of making, upon appropriation by the legislature, monies available to persons who meet specified criteria for purposes of providing financial assistance equal to the total amount of property taxes paid on a residential dwelling as defined, or $4,000, whichever is less, and as subject to specified limitations. The bill would, for purposes of determining a person's eligibility for monies under the program, require the person to provide an affidavit under penalty of perjury containing specified information if the residential dwelling is owned by the person on property owned by a nonprofit incorporated association. By expanding the crime of perjury, the bill would impose a state mandated local program. The bill would require the Franchise Tax Board to develop and administer the program and to provide monies to eligible claimants. The bill would set forth procedures for administrating the program. The California Constitution requires the state to reimburse local agencies and school districts for certain costs mandated by the state. Statutory provisions establish procedures for making that reimbursement. This bill would provide that no reimbursement is required by this act for a specified reason. All right. Property tax assistance for descendants of enslaved persons. All right, family. You know I got to get the music cracking. I was just like, man, where's the music at? I was feeling empty. All right, here we go. Let me see. My levels are okay. Yeah, we are good. Actually, let me turn that a tad bit. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. A property tax assistance for descendants of enslaved persons. Part 10.8, Section 21100. This chapter shall be known and may be cited as the Property Tax Assistance for Descendants of Enslaved Persons Program. For purposes of this part, the following definitions apply. So it explains. Claimant, a floating home, has the same meaning as defined in subdivision D of section 18075.55 of the Health and Safety Code. Explains household, includes the claimant and all other persons whose principal place of residence is the residential dwelling of the claimant. Principal place of residence has the same meaning as principal residence as the term is used in subdivision K of section 3 of Article 13. Program means the property tax assistance for descendants of enslaved persons program established by this part. Explains property tax means all taxes exclusive of interest, penalties, and principal payments on improvement, bonds, and charges for service levied against a claimant's residential dwelling by any taxing agency for payment with respect to property tax liens dates occurring on or after January 1st, 2025. All right. Residential dwelling means a dwelling used as a principal place of residence by the claimant in the land surrounding the dwelling as is responsibly necessary for use of the dwelling as a home. All right. Explains residential. Let's see here. Talks about rent. So let's go over here. Let's see section B, see what this says. A dwelling that is rented by the claimant that is subject to property taxation pursuant to Part 13 of Division 1 or to license fee imposed by Part 5 of Division 1 and that is located on land rented by the claimant or the owner of the dwelling. All right, so I believe these are some of the amendments that I want to say it was Glazier, but I could be wrong, so please forgive me in advance. Was mentioning in the previous clip, Senator Glazier. Let's see here, where are we at? Okay, it talks about a floating home, rented. Okay, notwithstanding paragraphs 1 and 2, residential dwelling shall not include any of the following: a dwelling that is exempt from ad valorem real property taxation and for which the owner of the dwelling is not liable for possessory interest taxes, a dwelling not located in the state and land without a dwelling located on the land. Taxing agency shall have the same meaning as in section 121. All right, let's go. So it talks about I guess let's read this because it talks about descendants. The property tax assistance for descendants of enslaved persons program is hereby established for purposes of providing financial assistance to descendants of a person enslaved in the United States. Upon appropriation by the legislation, money shall be distributed under the program in accordance with this part. The Franchise Tax Board shall develop and administer the program and consistent with the requirements of this part, shall provide assistance to claimants it selects to receive the assistance. All right. A person may file with the Franchise Tax Board a claim for property tax assistance in accordance with this part. All right. A person shall be considered a claimant that is eligible to receive assistance pursuant to this part if the person satisfies the following conditions. 1 is a descendant of an African American chattel enslaved person in the United States or descendants of a free black person living in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century. Their status as a descendant, as described in paragraph 1, has been confirmed by the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency. Let's repeat that again. Their status as a descendant, as described in paragraph 1, has been confirmed by the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency. Unfortunately, that bill did not pass because the wonderful CLBC decided to block it. All right, 3. Is either of the following: A, an owner and occupant of a residential dwelling that is the person's principal place of residence during the calendar year for which assistance is claimed. A person who rents and occupies a residential dwelling as their principal place of residence during the calendar year for which assistance is claimed. All right, so it goes on, talks about the Franchise Tax Board, more Franchise Tax Board. I think we already talked about the $4,000. All right, so yep. All right, so I am going to stop there. So, this is a pretty cool bill. It looks like if you do own or rent and you're a descendant, you would be able to take advantage of this property tax assistance program for descendants of enslaved persons here in California. But once again, the CLBC decided not to put this in its priority package. Let's go over. We have a few minutes, family. So once again, thanks again. Like, share, and subscribe. Would greatly appreciate it. Let me go back to my screen. Okay, so this is the budget analysis of this bill. Fiscal impact. This bill, upon appropriation by the legislature, would not likely result in an annual general fund disbursement in the tens of millions of dollars. Let's see, minimally. The exact amount would depend on information that is not known with certainty. See staff comments. FTB's costs to implement the bill have yet to be identified, but could potentially reach millions of dollars annually general fund. Okay, let's go back down to staff's comments. To produce a reliable revenue estimate for this bill, the number of African Americans who can prove they are descendants of an enslaved person or a free black person who lived in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century must be known. Absent this information, an upper bound of the revenue loss can be developed using available data regarding 1, the number of African American adults residing in the state, 2, the percentage of African American adults that own homes, and 3, the bill's $4,000 cap. Assuming every African American who owns a home in the state can prove they are descendants of an enslaved person of a free black or a free black person who lived in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century and otherwise qualify for the program, each 1% of qualified applicants would result in a revenue loss of $29 million. Again, this figure reflects an upper bound to provide an order of magnitude, as it is unlikely that every condition listed above would be fully met. Also, as noted previously, funding for the program would be upon appropriation of the legislature. Any local government costs resulting from the mandate in this measure are not state reimbursable because the mandate only involves the definition of a crime or the penalty for conviction of crime. All right. So let's go over, let's see the history of this bill, which isn't long, but we will do that anyway. I'll blow this up. So the bill was first introduced in February. Looks like it went to the Rules Committee and then on to the Committee for Revenue and Taxation. And then it ended up going to the Senate Appropriations. And then it was held in committee under the Appropriations Committee. So, and that was in May. So that's the history of this bill. So hopefully this one, along with SB 1007 and some of the other bills, especially SB 1403, the CAFA agency, as well as the fund. The previous bill was SB 1331, will be once again up for legislation this coming 2025. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little housekeeping first, and then we'll go ahead and read the comments and we'll be out of here. All right, so for those who have been following the California Black Freedom Fund tour, if you want to call it that, we got some news today, and I'd like to give a shout out to our good brother Chris Lodgson of the Coalition for Just and Equitable California. He alerted us that it looks like the event in Oakland, which was this upcoming Saturday, the 28th, has been moved. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been moved to December 13th. And once again, the registrations are closed, but does look like for Moreno Valley down there in Southern California, they're still holding the October 4th date. So that still looks like a go. Who knows? They might change that too. They've been pretty consistent, but that registration is closed as well. All right. But what is happening this weekend is a community town hall in Oakland, sponsored by our good family, our Northern California Arc Bay area in the building. I think we're going to try to make it. I think ETM is going to try to make it in the building. But if you are in the surrounding areas within Oakland, please stop by. That's 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's Sunday, 9/29. So I know usually we have a Road to Reparations show. So we aren't going to be having it this Sunday. Because most likely we are going to be attending this community town hall. That's at the Defirmary Recreation Center, 1651 Adeline Street, 94607. All right, take a screenshot, and if you have a chance to attend, please do so. All right, a couple more. So this upcoming general election, November 5th, we're actually going to be going over the California Assembly race as well as the California state race. I thought we were going to do it this week, but no, actually it's going to be next week. We're going to try to maybe do a live stream. If not, actually, yeah, we'll probably either it be live stream or pre-recorded. So check that out next week. We might do it the whole week, like literally Monday through Friday. To get through all of the legislators and for the Assembly and for the Senate. So it's going to be interesting, family. It's going to be a lot of shaking things up, I should say, here in November. So be on the lookout for that. And if you have not registered to vote, please do so. The registration deadline is October 21st, 2024, and early voting is October 7th, I believe, for the general election, November 5th. And if you have yet to see, this past Sunday, we went in on the CLBC, talked about where's the money, and we had a lot of questions, and we still have a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. All right, so let's go through the comments, and we will be out. So, all right. Yes, Marcellus Williams, peace, peace, peace. Yes, definitely. May the brother rest in peace. May the brother rest in peace. All right. Tribal tangibles, ? But no reparations housing bills, SB 107 and SB 1013. Yes, freed peeps. That is true. What's up, Ease Axe? Thanks again. We got your Cash App donation. So appreciate that, brother. We appreciate you. And we appreciate everybody for contributing. Even if you hit that like button, subscribe, and share, and hit that bell for notifications, you are helping out tremendously. Thank you. Antoine, thank you for showing a wow. All right. Thanks for the clip. What good is the CLBC? They don't do shish. I appreciate the coded explicit word. Want to try to keep it clean for the babies on here, for the young ones listening. So thank you for that. As Isaacs, yes. What good is the CLBC? They don't do ish for us. Hey, that is a great question. So yeah, it looks like the people who decided, specifically the legislators, stood up for their tribal community. But yeah, what about the CLBC and their own constituents? Right? Enough said. Anyway, we are going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it going. So once again, if you do have a chance, please check out the community town hall in Oakland. Once again, sponsored by Arc Bay Area. So shout out to the Arc Bay Area family. Now on that note, ladies and gentlemen, please have a great week. And I don't know when we talk. We might be talking next week, probably next week. So, stay informed. And as always, really appreciate you and everyone for joining, participating, getting educated. And most importantly, if you're in California, if you're outside of California, please keep yourself updated on your own local, state, and federal legislative policies, because you do make a difference. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't make a difference. I remember me and my partner Kim, before we got into this advocacy in this political media space, we had very little information and knowledge about this process. But when we decided to get involved with it, we begin to know, where the money's coming from, and most importantly, how we can make a change. So everybody has a chance to make a change. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, please take care of yourself, you and your loved ones, and we will see you next time. All right. And we are out. Peace and reparations.
I think that the Black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here, because we're the only ones who carried the process through the process. That everyone else has to sort of like skip stages. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter. Because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for. And we still had to go through those channels and those processes.
I don't really care what you have to say. Facts over fiction is the motto replay. Muhammad Ali came up from the clay. Grassroots built up this USA. Now knowing your history, you'll get played. Equip yourself, cause we came to slay any opponent that's up in our way. Look at Malcolm X and his delivery.